Lesson 6, I'm going to go over a really fun tool called the Mixer Brush. Um, but first, let's open two files that I want you to use for this exercise. So I'm going to go to File, Open, and the first image that we're going to be actually working with for this tutorial is called ballplayersmall.jpg. And then if you want, there's also this image called ballplayerworkingfile.psd. I want to show you kind of what we're working towards. So the goal that we're going to be working towards with the mixer brush is turning this photograph into a painting. So if I zoom in, you'll see that this has brush strokes and it looks like a painting, but I actually just worked off this image using the mixer brush to create a painting from a photograph. So really quick, I want you to notice in my version of this as a painting in my layers panel, I've put together several different layers. I have the original image, and then I've kind of broken up different layers into shorts, sky, legs, arms, shirt, basketball, head. So I've intentionally created different layers and painted different parts of this picture on the layers just to have a little more control over the final outcome, and I can erase things and redo them. So this is the goal. This is what we're going to be working towards. So go ahead and bring to front the ballplayersmall.jpg file. And then really quickly, I want to show you where the mixer brush is. It's under the main brush tool and pencil tool, and the color replacement tool is the mixer brush. The first thing that we're going to do once you select your mixer brush is I want you to go up to the mixer brush options at the top of your panel, and I want you to just take note that there's some different options here. You have access to your brush settings and brushes. You might want to bring that up to front so you can choose the different brushes that you want to use. Now's the perfect opportunity to use some of these kind of fan and what else what's this one called? This is come on. Flat point, like all of these brushes that are actually like paint brushes, because it'll help with creating your painting. So I'm going to go ahead and throw these in here so I can hide them. All right, so the first thing that I want you to do once you have this image open is I want you to duplicate the background layer and call it ball player photo. So the way that I'm going to do this is I'm just going to go ahead and drag my background layer down to the new layer icon at the bottom of your layers panel. It's going to be a background copy. And I want you to name this ball player photo, just so we don't get confused. This is our original. Maybe I'll call it original photo just for. Then the next step is I want you to select a new background layer and edit it. So we're going to grab our original background layer. I'm going to hide my new ball player photo, and I'm going to make sure my background layer is selected in my layers panel, and we're going to fill this background in with white. So we're just going to simply do that by going Edit, Fill, and then we're going to select under Contents, we're going to select white. Make sure your mode is normal and your opacity is 100, and we're going to click OK. So that's going to fill in our background with white. And then the next thing is really fun. We're going to go ahead and add a canvas texture to our background layer. And there's a really easy way to do this too. We're going to do it again by filling. So we're going to go to Edit, Fill, and this time, instead of Contents White, we're going to choose Contents Pattern. And pay really close attention because this is a little tricky. So once you have Contents Pattern open under the options where it says Custom Pattern, I want you to open that up and you're going to see all these leaves or possibly whatever default options are in your custom panels toolbar. And there's this little wheel icon. It's hidden. I don't know why it's not more easily understandable, but what this little gear means is there is a ton of other default preset patterns that you can load and use. It's really a cool option. We're going to go ahead and choose a canvas pattern from the Artist Surfaces library. When it says replace current patterns with the patterns from Artist Surface, go ahead and say OK. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and choose a simple canvas pattern. I'm going to kind of scroll over and see that's burlap, that's Berber, extra heavy canvas. I just want a normal, nice canvas texture. I'm going to choose this one right here. So there's one that's called Canvas, 150 pixels by 150 pixels. I think that one will be great. And the reason we're doing this is because this texture is going to kind of peek through and make that painting effect. So I'm going to click OK. And you can see my canvas pattern has been applied to the background, which is really cool. All right, so the next step is we're going to create several blank layers that are going to live above our ball player photo. And if you remember, the reason we're going to do this is because we're going to be painting on these individual layers, different parts of this photo. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my ball player photo back on my layers panel, and I'm going to start with 5 layers, 5 blank layers. And you can see that these layers are not residing above my ball player. So if you're having that problem too, remember it's simply a stacking order issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight my ball player original photo, and I'm going to drag it to be the first layer directly above our new background texture. All right, so here's where it gets fun. We're going to go ahead and select layer 1. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit further. And I'm going to choose the mixer brush tool. If you push B in your panel, you'll see the mixer brush tool will pop up. And some really helpful hints. Up here in our options bar, the wet option is really helpful. And the very wet presets here are also really helpful in creating that painting effect that we're going to go for, like kind of a really nice mixed wet painting that we're going to be creating. So go ahead and make sure that very wet is selected in your drop down panel. Moist and dry options that are here too are also really great if you're trying to have some real defined details in your painting. So you can kind of jump around and play with these. But yeah, I'm going to start with very wet. And then the next thing I want you to do, this is a really important step. You need to make sure that in your options panel, this little box here is selected. It says sample all layers. It has to be checked. If you see it looking like this, go ahead and click it and check it. So the reason this is so important is because as you paint with a mixer brush, it's going to be grabbing the paint colors from the pixels in your photograph and turning it into a painting looking effect. So you've got to make sure that's selected or it is not going to work for you. So if you're frustrated, that's probably one of the reasons why. And the other really important thing that I want to make sure you do is you want to deactivate load brush after each stroke button. And what this will do is it'll reinterpret the photo with a clean brush every time. So if it looks like this, you want to go ahead and make sure that this little thumbnail looks like transparent pixels and that this is a darker gray, this little icon. So the clean the brush after each stroke has to be activated. So once you have these settings all together, then it's just fun from here. So I'm going to start. I'm not going to finish this all with you guys for this tutorial. I'll let you play. But I'm going to start with the head. I have my brush selected, and I'm going to just start to kind of go in and use the brush just carefully. If you zoom in, The bigger the brush, the more it's gonna kind of smush the pixels around. Um, the smaller the brush, remember you can use your bracket keys to make your brush quickly smaller. It'll do smaller strokes. So I'll typically, with like little details like the ear, I'll use a smaller brush. And then with bigger areas, I will make my brush a little bigger and I'll kind of mush it in. So that's the head, and it's getting a little sloppy. So I might go from very wet to just wet so that it's not so mushed. And then you can also change your wet factor here to make it a little bit less. One trick here that I want to tell you about is, like, for example, if I don't like this blue part right here, I want to get rid of it. All you do is you use the eraser tool in your toolbar and you can erase a certain area. It'll bring back those original pixels, and then you can go back into your mixer brush tool and maybe go a little bit smaller and kind of mush those pixels in again. So I'm going to zoom out. And I'll just do one more with you and then I'll let you guys hit it yourself. I'll do the shirt next because I just have a couple of tips on the shirt. I think I'm going to go ahead and make my brush custom, and I'm going to increase my wetness this way. That's a little too wet to me. Going to make my brush a little bigger. And then for the shirt, it's really helpful kind of to follow the lines of the original like creases to start. And you'll see that as I paint, this is appearing in my shirt layer in my layers panel. You'll see the shirt starting to appear. So I'll do like kind of big broad strokes with the shirt. And kind of keep those lines. And I kind of like it when it gets a little sloppier on the edges, but I'll go a little smaller with my brush. And it's kind of fun just to mush it around. I might actually pick a different brush. I think this brush is a little too perfect. I think I want more of a fan, where I can kind of bring it in. And then I'll go ahead and just do a quick arms. So I think you guys get the drift. It's really kind of fun to play with and just kind of make it look real painterly, and can be sloppy because you kind of start to get the effect. With hands and stuff, again, I'd probably do a little bit of a smaller brush to try to keep some of those details. And so what I would do is I would just start to go through and make new layers. Maybe I'd make a short layer. I'd probably fix this head a little bit. But it's really fun to just play around with and kind of recreate a painting. The one last step that I want to, after you're done painting the picture in sections, each one on a separate layer. Again, remember you can erase any unwanted strokes using the eraser tool, which is right here. So last thing you want to do is decrease the opacity of your ball player photo to about 90%. So decrease that. And what'll happen is you'll start to see that canvas texture peek through when you decrease the opacity. So go ahead and have a little fun. Make a painting. I gave you guys the version that I did too, just so you could have something to compare it to. And yeah, enjoy the mixer brush.